We will also get to explore annuities as part of retirement. I know you've had a terrific lineup this morning, and so it looks like you're going to have a even better afternoon. So we're glad to be a part of it here in midday. And I know that we don't want to squander even a moment, so we will work our way through this so that we can have plenty of time, because I know we have a break after this also. So I want to first tell you who I am. I'm Kathy Weatherford. I'm the chairman, the CEO of the Insured Retirement Institute, and it is a organization here in D.C. For nearly 30 years, I was a regulator and consumer advocate, from being statewide elected official in the state of Oklahoma, regulating insurance as the insurance commissioner, to leading the National Association of Insurance Commissioners, which is the central coordinating body over insurance regulation across America. So I've always advocated for strong consumer protections and increased awareness and education around protecting Americans' financial security. And throughout my career, the increased financial literacy at many cross points where you either had regulatory issues or consumer needs, financial literacy was right at the forefront. So as my role with the IRI, I've tried to continue to have a strong focus on consumer education with that particular eye on retirement security. And as a not-for-profit, it's our mission to promote consumer education, deliver unbiased information to consumers and financial professionals, and to help them make good, informed decisions around retirement planning. Our membership is composed of the entire supply chain of insured retirement strategies, large life insurers to banks, broker-dealers, and the wirehouses, down through financial advisors, and finally through the consumer. So the diversity of our membership, it helps us to have informed conversation from up and down that value chain on an annuity as a part of a holistic retirement plan. And certainly these savings vehicles are not for everyone. And I know we're going to hear more about that. But we do know through our own research at IRI that for those entering retirement, that the value proposition of these strategies plays an important role in how people view their own retirement security. One of our recent pieces of research considered that 92% of baby boomers who own an annuity feel confident about their long-term retirement prospects. That's a tremendous number. I think that has to do everything with the portfolio volatility over the past several years and the stability within the annuity vehicle. And we all know the statistics, whether we use 77 million or 79 million baby boomers, they're beginning that march into retirement, and we sit at this precipice of unprecedented retirement cascade. And it's further magnified by the decline of defined benefit pension plans and the rise of self-reliance to fund one's own retirement. So the challenges that lie ahead are much bigger than the age-old question of how much have you saved. As a nation, I believe we've done a good job in educating people about the importance of saving, although we can always do more. But we've fallen short in educating consumers on how to create that retirement spending plan. How do you make sure that you have the resources that you've amassed over a lifetime of savings that truly do last you to the very last day? So part of this lack of education and lack of understanding what preferences people have in generating lifetime income, their attitudes about annuitization, and what they're looking for in terms of the product offerings. So our ability to crack the code of what so many of us refer to as the annuitization puzzle will directly impact our ability as an industry, thought leaders, public policy makers, and financial literacy advocates to help millions of Americans shift their thinking away from that accumulation side to the decumulation side of the retirement paradigm. Among the leading beliefs is that when faced with a choice between annuitizing retirement savings or taking it as one distribution as a lump sum, pre-retirees often chose the latter. There is reluctance to let go of even a portion of that savings, even when it generates lifetime income. So, understandably, lump sums look attractive, but after a lifetime of savings, consumers now have the ability to manage their retirement finances from one large pool of resources. But the truth of the matter is that most are not equipped to turn that money into a steady retirement income stream, what I call mailbox money, that will last them for 20 or 30 years in retirement. So is that really the case, though? Do most people really want a lump sum? Do they really want just a partial distribution? Do they really want innovative products? So joining us today to delve into these issues are two leading experts on the very topic of annuities and their acceptance by consumers, David Laibson from Harvard University's Department of Economics and Olivia Mitchell from the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. Olivia, I'm going to turn it over to you first. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I thought I'd just talk about three main themes in my allocated 10 minutes, because then David's going to come on and there'll be an opportunity for other people to ask questions and make comments. The theme, first of all, is what are payout annuities and what advantages and disadvantages do they have? Second, how can we value payout annuities? And third, so why don't people buy more annuities? That's kind of the overview. So for those of you who are too young to have thought about annuitization, and I think probably at least 3/4 of the room is probably too young, payout annuities are important because they convert a lump sum of money into a regular income stream that you can never run out of. That is typical, in the simplest form, a payout annuity will continue to pay you a paycheck for life. And they're useful in several ways. Of course, they help you draw down your assets in a regular fashion so that you don't have to make a lot of decisions about when and where to spend the money. The guaranteed lifetime income benefits protect beneficiaries from having to make decisions perhaps later in life when they may lose some of their mental faculties, as we see happening to our parents and grandparents. And specifically, I think for the financially illiterate, the groups that we've been talking about today, annuities could offer a benefit payout stream which helps them avoid making decisions, perhaps decisions they could live to regret. There are disadvantages to annuities. There's certainly been a lot of press about how complex they are, about how they're illiquid, they're perceived as expensive, and of course at the end of the day you really want to make sure your annuity provider, your insurance company, remains solvent so it will keep paying you those annuities the rest of your life. And another issue, of course, is many people are already fairly well annuitized if they've been paying into Social Security, if they have a defined benefit pension. In a sense, the benefits promised by Medicare and Medicaid could also be seen as a form of pre-annuitization or already annuitized wealth, and so people might not need additional annuitization at some level. How can we think about how to value payout annuities? Well, there's two concepts that most of us as economists look at. One is what we call the money's worth value. The money's worth value simply looks at the ratio of the expected benefits you think you're going to get, the income payments the rest of your life, discounted to present, and compares those to the premium that you pay. So the money's worth ratio is the benefits you think you're going to get back divided by the premium dollar. And in research I've done with a number of colleagues, we've found numbers like 96 or 98 cents on the dollar. That is, you pay a premium dollar, and in expectation, of course you don't know if you're going to live a long time or not, but on average you expect to get back around 96 or 98 cents on the dollar. So I talk to people about that and they say, oh, that's a terrible investment. And my answer is, no, you're thinking about it wrong. It's not an investment, it's insurance. It's insurance so that you'll never run out of income the rest of your life. And then I turn around and I say, well, what about the money's worth of other insurance products that you buy frequently? Say health insurance or automobile insurance. What's the money's worth of those? Anybody know? 60 cents on the dollar, 50 cents on the dollar, and yet nobody says that I don't think that buying auto insurance is a bad investment, particularly given the alternatives. So the other way we think about valuing payout annuities is in terms of the utility value, the peace of mind that you get by providing for that very long lifetime ahead of you. And my work shows that the welfare, the benefits to the consumer are quite substantial if you have access to annuities, maybe worth 10% of your lifetime income. So quite substantial. So that leads us to the third point: why don't people buy annuities if they're so great? And this was already alluded to in terms of the so-called annuity puzzle. I don't really think there is an annuity puzzle in some ways. As I mentioned, many folks are already very well annuitized, and so they might not need any more. People with very small account balances, $5,000 or $10,000 in their 401k plans, they probably don't need annuities either. Won't pay very much. One of the reasons that I think people don't annuitize their defined contribution benefits enough is that few employers today make annuities available within the plan. And this is a topic that I testified to the Labor Department's ERISA Advisory Council to the other day, which is, should there be some different regulations or ways to facilitate making annuities accessible? And there are behavioral factors, and this is something that both David and I have worked on. Many people, I think, wrongly believe that they can invest the money better than their insurance company or their plan sponsor. By and large, we know that's not true. Many people don't understand the fees and charges they're going to be paying and end up doing much worse. Financial advisors also have, to some extent, a conflict of interest. They recommend taking the lump sum so they can help you manage it and make a commission on it rather than encouraging you to think about buying lifetime income. A lot of people underestimate the fact that they're going to live a very long time, and they don't even think about the possibility that they could live to be 100 or older. If you're female, if you have health insurance, and you're above average, as everyone in this room is, there's a reasonable chance you're going to live to be 100 or even older than that. So this is the type of tail risks that we should be thinking about. A lot of people suffer from lump sum illusion. They say, oh, wow, I have $100,000, not realizing that if you're going to try to spread that over the next 25 or 30 years of your life, it's not going to go very far. But ultimately, these are very complex products. We have to be honest about that. They have fees and riders and various different aspects. My current research with Jeff Brown, Ari Kaptein, and Erzo Lutmer is trying to get at how people understand these lifetime income concepts with an internet survey we've been doing, asking people how they think about their Social Security benefits. So there are two questions we ask. The first is, would you prefer to keep your expected Social Security benefit versus instead taking $100 less, getting a benefit that's $100 less in exchange for a lump sum? In other words, what's the lump sum that I would have to pay you to give up $100 worth of your Social Security benefits? So we ask them that question, and they give a range of answers. And we vary the lump sum so we get a sense of what the trade-off is that they'd be willing to accept. Then we ask the question in reverse. We say, your expected benefit is X, let's say $1,000 a month. How much would you be willing to pay, again as a lump sum, in order to get to buy another $100 worth of Social Security benefits per month the rest of your life? So in one case it's giving up something for a lump sum, in the other case it's paying to get more. What are the results? Very, very quickly, people on average value the lump sum and the annuity about correctly. That is, if you traded off $100 the rest of your life, it would be worth, depending on the group you're looking at, around $18,000 in present value. And people on average say about $18,000, which really blew my mind. But what's even more interesting is there's extreme heterogeneity across the population. Some people say they would be willing to give up $100 for a couple of thousand. Some people say they would need $1 million. So there's extraordinary variation across the population. The other thing we find is that people will demand a much higher lump sum to give up $100 a month than they would be willing to pay to purchase another $100. In other words, there's an asymmetry between giving up versus buying annuities. But the most interesting finding was that the folks who are financially literate are the ones who really get it. They see that we're really asking the same question one way or the other. The least financially literate people are the people with the biggest asymmetry. So there's a lot more I could say, but let me just wrap up by saying that there really is a lot to be learned about how people think about purchasing or buying or giving up lump sums. The value of insurance against running out of money is very, very important. And I think ultimately more standardization would be useful and more simplicity in the way we explain to people the way these products work. In Chile, for example, they have an online computer program. When you get to your distribution phase, your retirement phase, you put in your name, no, not your name, your age and your sex and the amount of money you have, and then all the insurance companies bid to provide you an annuity. Very simple, very comparable, and a huge fraction of the population in Chile does actually buy annuities. So with that, thank you for your attention.
Thank you. David.
So I also want to talk about three things in my 10 minutes. I'm going to begin by discussing a somewhat novel reason why I think we need something like annuities. I then want to talk about the troubling fact that attitudes towards annuitization and longevity insurance and guaranteed income are all over the map, and I think it's, at this point in time, pretty hard to figure out what the American public actually wants. And then I want to suggest that perhaps we can do better by devising new products that will actually make longevity insurance more appealing. So let me begin by discussing reasons that I think we desperately need annuities, and in particular a reason that is rarely discussed. So the familiar reason that we need annuities is longevity insurance, and the fact that if I annuitize my wealth, or some portion of it, I'm basically able to consume about a third more than I have by insuring against the state of nature that I live too long. Because I'm insuring against that state, I can consume more. So that's the textbook reason why we should have annuities. Everyone gets that. I think another reason that is rarely discussed, though Olivia referenced it quickly, is cognitive decline. And I think what we have built is a system that would work poorly if everyone maintained their cognitive function through retirement, but is a complete disaster given the actual cognitive trajectories that the average person in the population faces. So let me give you a few kind of sobering facts that I've been working on with Sumit Agrawal, John Driscoll, and Xavier Gebex. We have been studying cognitive decline and financial decision making among older adults, and these are the kinds of facts that you come across, either results that we've derived from others or calculations we've made ourselves using the HRS and other data, proprietary data from banks. So if you look at fluid intelligence, which is the ability to solve a novel problem, a new problem that is somewhat abstract, folks in their 20s are performing, adults in their 20s in the US are performing at about the 75th percentile of the adult population. So the average 20-year-old is at the 75th percentile when solving a novel problem. The average 80-year-old is about at the 25th percentile when solving a novel problem. So I'm not talking about people with dementia. I'm just saying the average 80-year-old is at the 25th percentile. Another example, this is data from the Health and Retirement Study. And this data that I'm about to tell you we've controlled here for cohort effects. So it's not about older cohorts getting a worse education. We're controlling for person fixed effects. If you take $2 million and divide it by 5, the answer is 400,000. Well, in America, 60-year-olds, about half of them can do that, can answer that question correctly. But if you look at 90-year-olds, only 1 in 10 can answer that question correctly. Let's talk about dementia now. Dementia basically doubles with every additional 5 years of aging. So 60 versus 65, it's twice as high at 65. 65 versus 70, it's twice as high at 70. There's almost no dementia at 60. There's some, very little. By the time you get into the 80s, about 20% of the US population has full-blown dementia. 20%. Moreover, dementia is an extreme category of cognitive decline. Another 30% on top of that 20% have something called cognitive impairment, not dementia, which is, in essence, I can't really make sophisticated financial decisions, but I haven't yet reached the point where a clinician would say I have dementia. Add those together, 50% of the population, and by the way, this is true in this country, it's true in other countries, this is not a particular US problem. 50% of the population between age 80 and 90 has significant cognitive impairment. And we have built a system that says, take your 401k, produce an IRA rollover, and allocate your assets and make withdrawal decisions until the end of life, when we should correctly anticipate that about half the population is going to spend a long period of their retirement unable to make those decisions in a sophisticated way. Now, I emphasize heterogeneity. This is not about everyone. It's about roughly half of the people in their 80s. If you look at the average diagnosis at about age 85, and here I'm again using data from the Health and Retirement Study, the average diagnosis lives somewhere between mild to moderate dementia. And when I say average diagnosis, I'm including all the people who are perfectly healthy in that. So I'm not just looking at those who have a problem. Across all 85-year-olds, the average diagnosis is between mild and moderate dementia. Now, we can also look at financial mistakes, and we have proprietary data from banks, and we see that older adults are making worse financial decisions than those in midlife. Okay, so point one, we need annuitization, not just for the old reason, longevity insurance. We need annuitization or something like that, something like the retirement paycheck. I don't remember who used that word.
Mailbox money.
Or the mailbox money, that was another word. We need something like that so that we don't ask 85-year-olds who are not in a position to make sophisticated decisions to do so, and instead it's much simpler for them. Okay, now what about the public's attitudes towards annuitization? All over the map. In my work with Steve Zeldis, John Bashairs, James Choi, and Bridget Madrian, when we try to ask a neutral question, we get the following results. If you take a scenario that is a DB-like scenario, defined benefit scenario, 39% of the population says they want full annuitization of their DB money, 40% say they want to annuitize half of their DB money, and 21% want to go for a full lump sum payout. That's in the survey. You actually look at the data, and roughly half of the DB money, when it can be turned into a lump sum payment. Many firms don't even allow that, but if we condition on the firms that do allow the lump sum payment, about half of that money. And this number is hard to pin down. There's different data sets that point in different ways, but looking across all the available data, about half of that money is escaping into lump sum payments. Now that's the DB world, where we have all the advantages of a default pushing people and regs pushing people to take the annuity. If you want to get out of the annuity and take a lump sum, you've got to go and get one of those people who witness a signature. Notary, thank you. Yeah, that's right.
Slight dementia, but not impaired.
That's right. Right. That's crystallized intelligence, which is supposed to go up. So you need a notary, and so there's lots of pressure to take the annuity, and yet half the population is running for the exit. But what about DC plans, where we don't have all the advantages of this nudge towards annuitization? In DC plans, even when you have an annuity menu in the DC plan, you've got something like the Hewler website, which makes it simple, which keeps it easy, which creates a simple comparison across products. I've used it. It's great. I'm not advocating it, but it's a simple setting in which to think about the choice among annuities. There we see 2, 3, 4% of the money in DC plans getting annuitized among retirees. So annuities don't seem to be appealing. Even when they have the advantages of the default, only half the money gets annuitized. And when the default advantage is not there and you offer a simple menu of annuity options, 3% of the money gets annuitized. Now you look at surveys and you can see evidence all over the map. If you ask the question, do you want guaranteed income in retirement? 85% say yes. If you ask the question, do you want guaranteed income in retirement, remembering that to have guaranteed income in retirement, you've got to give up control of your money day to day, 15% say yes. Those are the exact same question logically. Having guaranteed income means giving up your money to the insurance company or some other entity. So the fact that the American public can go to 85% or 15%, depending upon just the wording of the question, logically equivalent questions, tells me that the American public does not know what it wants, which means that I don't know what it wants either. I'm trying to figure it out too. So what can be done? Well, we need a lot of research to figure out how to solve this problem or begin to address this problem. Clearly, we need to help people better understand these products so we can better figure out whether the American public wants annuity products or doesn't. I think we need to improve the framing of these products. Earlier we heard the theme of standardization, simplification, and trust, and certainly those are all dimensions on which we should be working. I also think we should think about new products. So again, in work with Steve Zeldis, John Bashairs, James Choi, and Bridget Madrian, we've been trying to figure out if we can create more of the psychologically satisfying ingredients that people want from a lump sum payment and put it inside the annuity product. Let me give you an example of that. So we asked subjects in one of our surveys to make a choice between two products, a standard annuity that had a $2,000 per month payout, or a bonus annuity that had the following structure. Rather than $2,000 a month, the bonus annuity paid out $1,900 a month, almost as much. And then in 1 month a year, you got your bonus, which was going to be a splurge or a vacation or a holiday event, something. So it was $1,900 for 11 months a year, and then in that 12th month, you got your $1,900 as well, plus an extra bonus of $1,200. 60% of our respondents chose that product over the traditional annuity. Now, we're just throwing darts at this point. I think we could imagine a whole new effort, either in industry or in academia or in both places, trying to build a better annuity. The annuity that we have, the American public doesn't understand and doesn't like. But I think that the idea of guaranteed income for life is appealing, but there's something about the lack of control, the lack of personalization, the impression of the insurance industry, which is not positive. Whether that's a correct or incorrect impression, I don't know, but that is the impression of the American public. We need a product that has flexibility, that is aligned with people's goals, that is aligned with their honest-to-goodness spending behavior, that personalizes and makes them feel as though they're connected to the product rather than being sold a bill of goods. And so I'm optimistic, maybe naively so, that eventually we will figure out that the American public wants longevity insurance, though we won't call it that. We'll call it guaranteed income for life or something like that, or the mailbox paycheck. But I think we need to think about the product differently than we have been if we're ever going to get broad uptake. Thank you.
Thank you. Great. Well, sobering facts about our future in retirement when it comes to our cognitive abilities, but very powerful facts that tell us a lot about how it is we protect our money in retirement. So appreciate that very much. Few questions before we head out. Here we go, right here.
I mean, I totally agree with you. I recommend these types of annuities to my clients all the time. I even had my mother buy some, so then you know that I really believe in it. But the way that I get around my clients' objections, because they also, as soon as you hear, oh, we could die tomorrow and lose all the money, they get terrified by that. There are, I don't know if you're, but you can get, you can structure them. You get less than the payment that if you die tomorrow. But you get your principal back. You can get guaranteed 10 years, guaranteed 20 years. So there are different. So generally, what I do is I combine. First, I want different insurance companies to split. If it's any sizable amount of money, split it up. Usually, there's a $10,000 minimum. So I want different insurance companies just to make sure they'll be around. Obviously, only use very high quality insurance companies. But I do get people to do a combination of different payouts, so then they feel more secure, and I find that works.
Yeah. So we've actually looked at that data. The insurance companies sell immediate payment annuities that have N-year certain promises, so that even if the annuitant were to die tomorrow, the annuity would keep paying out for some number of years. The economic theory predicts that no one would want that product. In fact, almost 0% of the industry's sales are in immediate payment annuities with zero certain payout streams. In fact, the 10-year certain payout stream and 20-year certain payout streams are very, very popular in the industry, and almost no one's buying the products that we economists think they should be buying. Oh, she bought 0-year certain? Oh,
Yeah,
wow, okay, she's the only one.
Hi, Dan and Nicola, Financial Literacy Group. David or Kathy, what in terms of ranking of reasons people don't want to go into annuities, how big is solvency? And I have a follow-up to that after I ask.
Say solvency.
Solvency,
Solvency
yeah.
of the
Yeah.
companies
Yeah,
issuing
counterparty
the
risk.
insurance.
Right, right.
Would you go ahead?
Well, I, being a regulator for over 30 years, I think that it's a very powerful. You're giving your money to an institution for a long period of time, and so I think that is part of it. And it's something that we've got to overcome. I think the difference we have in the insurance industry and the regulation of the insurance industry is that there's really no, I believe, appropriate rankings where a consumer could rely on the solvency, the capitalization, the reserving, and to say, oh, that one, I can trust. It's because here they've met these factors. There's no real test. There's different types of rating bureaus, but nothing that actually gives the consumer the confidence to make that choice. So I think that's something that's going to happen. We do it for other financial institutions and other sectors. So I think it's going to have to come before consumers actually give over a large amount of money.
Right. Well, at the risk of being too bold from the policymaking side, but I'm a former policymaker, so I can be pretty bold now. Isn't the same true of financial institutions that people put their savings in now? They have no way to rank them, but you know what? They don't need it because there's deposit insurance. Any thought of any sort of...
Well, there is a backstop on annuities. The money, if it's on the general ledger of the insurance company and that insurance company goes under, you have a minimum of $250,000 back. If it's in a variable annuity, your money is in a separate account, not even on that company's books. So you're never going to lose because you're outside of the insurance company's GL, the general ledger. So, but the problem with that is that state insurance law prohibits the discussion of the backstop for any insurance product and the sale of the product. So you can't deliver that information to the consumer until after you deliver the policy. The policy's been sold and they're in the 10 or 20 or 30-day free look. Then you can disclose that there's a backstop. So I think that that's the second hurdle. If you had, with financial institutions, we make them put a sticker in the window. You don't walk in until you see FDIC insured, and that's not the case. And so I think that has to change to where a discussion about the backstop can happen at the point of sale, so that the comfort and confidence goes up.
That's right. I mean, I would concur. I mean, people don't know what FDIC stands for, but they're glad that sticker's
Right,
there.
exactly. It's there's.
But it does come at a cost. I mean, so I'm a little bit worried in this age of governments making promises that they can't keep, to make a new, very, very big promise like that. I mean, I agree. We already have this promise implicitly, in some ways, through the state insurance commissions. But if we want to make it a federal promise and we want to start advertising it, we're putting ourselves potentially in a hole. So I think it's an open question whether we should go down that road. If it turns out that is the barrier or a key barrier, we may want to cross that Rubicon. But I would cross it hesitantly.
My turn.
I have just an observation, which I think is somewhat obvious, but pretty much all European countries have solved the problem by just regulating it. If you're in Europe, you have no choice, cognitively impaired or not. And I guess, particularly David's story suggests that there definitely has to be more regulation, because there's just too many people who can't help themselves, so you have to do something about it, isn't it so?
So I'm somewhat sympathetic with that view, but what makes me nervous about going down that path is that the American public doesn't agree with us elites on this issue. So are we comfortable saying so confidently we know better? Now, it's true that I feel as though we're making a grave mistake, and it also has social consequences. I mean, one argument here is that there's an externality. When I don't annuitize my wealth, and then I end up bankrupt at age 87, the government picks up my health care costs even more than it would under Medicare. I enter Medicaid bankruptcy, and now I have all sorts of additional health care benefits coming from the government. So one argument maybe is, we're not doing this for your benefit. We're doing this to solve a social coordination problem, which is that we all have an incentive to defect and go into Medicaid bankruptcy if we're a lower income household, and compulsory annuitization prevents that kind of bankruptcy move, or at least it reduces that kind of bankruptcy move. So if I make that argument, the externality argument, fine, we know how to play that game, and that's credible. But if I'm saying I'm actually doing something which is in your private best interest, even though you don't agree, American public, and you don't agree, American public, overwhelmingly, this is not a case where there's a 50-50 debate. The American public, by and large, doesn't buy annuities with any flexible money they have. The only annuities right now that are being sold in some mass market way are variable annuities, and that's a really different story. They have an insurance wrap, but it's not about annuitization. And of course, annuitization of DB wealth, but that is shrinking rapidly. 30 years ago, almost every penny in the DB system emerged as an annuity dollar. Now it's half, and at the rate we're going, it's going to keep falling. So yeah, I'm sympathetic, but boy, is that going to be a brutal debate. And will we all be accused of terrible paternalistic instincts? Yes.
Yeah.
Do you have time for one more?
One more.
Okay, real quick. So I'm at the World Bank, and we just did this a report on good practices on financial consumer protection worldwide, and this was a big issue, the insurance guarantee programs. And my insurance experts said, no, there's no agreement on that. We received detailed written comments from about 30 financial regulators worldwide. No one said you have to have insurance guarantee schemes in place. But I'll tell you, this summer I looked at taking my DB pension from a government agency, actually a multi-government agency, and converting that into an annuity. Like, what would it cost to replace that in the private sector market? And going on the internet and asking for bids, I got 12 bids from different firms. Only one would do what I wanted, a simple lifetime annuity with index to the consumer price index. That one firm was AIG. And when I tried to talk to the salespeople about just how the insurance guarantee program worked, there was no information, nothing on the internet, and I wrote to the association. They wouldn't write back. I left them a message, and they wouldn't call back. It's tough.
It is. Yeah, you're totally right. Another case where economic theory just seems to get things exactly wrong. Economic theory predicts, in this case, that the product we should all want is an inflation-linked longevity insurance product, a real annuity in shorthand. That product basically doesn't even exist. You can find, if you hunt on the web desperately, a firm that says they might be selling it, and then as you found out, they're not really selling it. The only products that are out there that aren't just nominal fixed products are products with so-called COLAs, cost of living adjustments. And they will have a rider that says every year the nominal payment goes up 1%, or if it's a 2% product, 2% per year. But of course, that's not inflation linked. That's just a fixed nominal growth rate. So again, I'm kind of scratching my head as an economist. I know all the good arguments in favor of real annuities, and yet the demand is so small for these products that the industry doesn't even offer them.
All right. Oh, well, quick one? Is it quick? Okay. Okay.
My name is Lisa Schneider. I'm with Greenwald and Associates, and I'm curious for the panelists and really anyone in the room if you think the demand for annuities will change among younger generation consumers, having been perhaps scared straight by current economic conditions and what we will witness with the baby boomer parents aging.
Are you asking about the next 5 years or the next 50 years?
When they start getting serious about retirement planning. So in theory, I think we're talking 15 to 20 years from now. How will current events or near future events shape their demand for annuities or interest in it?
So I remain somewhat optimistic that at the 20 to 30 year horizon that you're discussing, we will see annuities become quite popular. And I think the way, so if you'd asked someone in 1976, what about these new 401ks, or is anyone going to use them? People would say, what? I never even heard of a 401k in 1970. Dude, this is ridiculous. And of course, slowly, they spread through the corporate sector, and eventually now everyone takes for granted that that's part of a job at well-established firms. I think the same thing may happen with annuities, and the way that they'll come into common usage is the same way that 401ks ultimately spread, as annuitization becomes an automatic feature of your 401k plan. And so you could imagine products that would take matching funds from your employer and slowly start buying annuity claims even as you're 25, 26 years old. And at that point, it looks really good because you put $1 in at age 26 and you get in return for $1 at age 26, $1 every year back to you starting at age 65. That sounds fantastic. And it's the benefit of 50 years of exponential growth making that possible. So I think it's that kind of automatic annuitization done inside default structures, inside ERISA-regulated plans with all of the protections, all of the fiduciary protections that occur in those plans that will ultimately make annuitization part of our everyday experience. And the industry is certainly moving in that direction, but the products that have been developed in the last 5 years have had almost no take-up along the lines that I've just described. But every single financial service firm has a small group either working on products like that or they've already rolled it out and they're looking for customers. So this revolution is about to start, and the problem, of course, is that no employer wants to be the bleeding edge and adopt a new annuity product that turns out to be 10 years of lawsuits because of their reversibilities. So there's a kind of first mover problem, and there's a regulatory problem. If there's any regulators in the room, we need Washington to give more blessing, more safe harbor protection to these products. And if that occurs, the financial services industry is happy to provide the products. They already exist, and employers will then adopt the products once they feel as though that they're out of harm's way vis-a-vis lawsuits.
Thank you. All right. I think you have a well-deserved break ahead of you.